Being a villain is really a matter of perspective. As time changes and characters grow and evolve, their perspectives change, and someone who could have originally come across as a villain might reform and feel that their energies are best served elsewhere. Not just that, but villains who stay villains might be seen themselves through a new lens or perspective. A new writer or a new form of media may choose to portray them in a very different light, changing how we see them and how they go about their daily business. This isn't just true for supervillains either, but can happen to any character in a good story. And the longer a character has been around, the more likely they are to change. Kinda like people. Although at a certain point it feels like most people, unlike beings of fiction, become more set in their ways as opposed to continuing to grow and evolve. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be looking at a topic of transformation as it applies to our more evil characters in the world of comics. Well, evil from a superhero's perspective at least, as we count down the top 10 supervillains who have changed the most. And if you haven't already, why not smash that subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of our nerdy lists and other nerd content. You know I love it when you click that sub. Alright, now let's get counting. Number 10, Mr. Sinister. While we might not have originally been aware of the changes Mr. Sinister went through to begin with, we would later on learn more about the villain and in so doing, learn about all the great changes that Nathaniel Essex originally went through to become Mr. Sinister. Sinister was created following Essex's turning to the dark side, becoming BFFs and partners with Apocalypse, and allowing Apocalypse to help Mr. Sinister evolve into the best, most freaky looking version of himself. Since we've come to know Sinister, he's also died at the hands of Rogue, and would later return as a bunch of different fail-safe clone versions of himself, including the iconic genetic virus implanted clone Miss Sinister, which would later allow him to be reborn as a mutant officially. Number 9, Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a villain who's kind of all about change, as that's kind of his mutant ability. And Sabanur discovered that evolution was his ability, and it is this power that kept him so strong and feared throughout time. That, and he also allowed himself to be altered by celestial technology. But not just his power levels and appearance have evolved over time. Apocalypse has also recently turned over a new leaf, joining his mutant brothers and sisters on the mutant nation and island known as Krakoa. There he begrudgingly works alongside his former enemies, even if he does often consider them to be still weaker than him. Still, he has fully embraced the ideals of Krakoa, even changing his name. He no longer goes by Apocalypse, but by, well, however you say this in Krakoan. In fact, he actually created his own name in Krakoan, as these symbols don't adhere to what we know of the Krakoan alphabet this far. I'm really hoping that someone at Marvel will start up a crash course in how to speak Krakoan, because I know how to read it, but how to speak it remains a mystery. And I still don't know exactly what Apocalypse's Krakoan name is. Although I assume it's something similar, but in Krakoan? Number 8, KITE-MAN. KITE-MAN was originally known as a B-list or even a C-list villain. Chuck Brown's KITE-MAN was actually a character inspired by Charlie Brown, who also had an affinity for kites. His original origins was simply that he was a kite-obsessed kid who grew up to become a kite-obsessed supervillain, belonging to Batman's gallery of rogues. However, when his character was reintroduced as part of the New 52, he was given a more tragic backstory of losing his son to a poisoned kite string, caught up in the war between Joker and the Riddler due to being the creator of Joker's Jokermobile and getting involved with Batman. It's a really hard time for KITE-MAN there. The death of his son caused him to become a villain, and later somewhat of a hero, who is known as KITE-MAN. We've also gotten a relatively more humorous version of the villain, with more of a throwback to and play on his original C-lister status in the Harley Quinn animated series. However, the depiction of KITE-MAN in the Harley Quinn series has actually also led us to seeing a resurgence of his popularity, or has just allowed him to become popular, because I'm not sure if KITE-MAN ever had that before. Were people fans of KITE-MAN before the Harley Quinn animated series? Put up your hand if you were there before in the comments. Number 7, Riddler. Over the years, from a visual standpoint, the Riddler has changed quite a bit. He's also been varying levels of sane throughout the years as well. Though he's always been somewhat criminally insane, as that's a huge part of what makes him so obsessed with the world of riddles. He also always has a brilliant mind, and it's often his obsession with riddles and giving his enemies at least the ability to solve and then thwart him that often gets gets him caught. Riddler has gone from jet black hair to ginger hair and has even been spotted with a question mark mohawk before. He's been seen wearing his full spandex question mark suit originally, which became more and more of a question marked suit and tie look, to just a polished suit and tie look with hints of question marks, to back to that full spandex suit, to a trench coat, to Arkham Asylum prisoner garb. New Earth Edward Nygma also had a daughter who was only briefly around and known as Enigma, a sometimes pal of the Joker's daughter Dwella Dent. Look at where the Riddler started and finished and you'll notice lots of visual and backstory changes to his character throughout the years. Number 6. Bane. While Bane in the comics might not have changed so very drastically over the years, the depiction of Bane's character in other media certainly has. Just compare comic book Bane to Nolan's Bane played by Tom Hardy, and then compare those two to the Harley Quinn animated series, and you've really got some different portrayals there. Bane in the animated series is sort of portrayed as being a not so bright but still quite strong softie. He is much less threatening than the other versions of Bane we have, and also much less of a genius, and he usually ends up as the butt of the other villains' jokes, and is often bullied by them, something that would likely never happen to comic book Bane or Tom Hardy Bane for that matter. If the Legion of Doom were the mean girls, he'd be their Karen. Number 5. Carnage. In terms of changes, Carnage has seen a massive level up when it comes to power since his origins, and heck, even when he first appeared on the scene, Cletus Kasady and his symbiotic friend were still a force to be reckoned with, striking terror into the fear of many hearts. But since the story of Maximum Carnage, we've also seen the story of Absolute Carnage come in, and learned that if we had thought Carnage couldn't get any more scary, well, we were wrong. In Absolute Carnage, Cletus's corpse is resurrected and bonded to the Grendel symbiote to create a new version of Carnage, which would later snowball into an even more powerful form known as Dark Carnage. Number 4. Sentinels. As the years and alternate timelines have continued to progress and multiply, we have seen tons of evolution from one of the X-Men's most iconic enemies, the Sentinels, with new models coming out made to adapt with the challenges of the times and the foes they are facing. In X-Men Gold, we saw nanite technology used in the creation of Sentinels to make them even more deadly, allowing them to adapt as needed, altering their size and shape. In the X-Men film Days of Future Past, we saw the evolution of Sentinels using Mystique's DNA to allow these Sentinels to change shape, but not only that. The Sentinels of the alternate post-apocalyptic future we saw were also insanely durable and could transform their body into bioweapons. This was a reimagining of the Sentinel technology potential, where these robotic beings, created by Dr. Bolivar Trask, had now become the ultimate enemy to mutant kind. Number 3. Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus went through a fairly big change when he decided to abandon his dying, failing body and complete one last sinister plot to steal Peter Parker's body for himself. He succeeded in swapping bodies with Peter, leaving Peter's consciousness stuck in his old failing body while he took up residence inside Peter's younger and much stronger body. However, Peter Parker's mind would still manage to convince Otto Octavius to not just let the change be a physical one, but also a mental one, swaying him to take up the mantle of Spider-Man and even inspiring him to set out on a mission to be an even better hero than Peter Parker was in the role. He took up the mantle of Superior Spider-Man. Well, now he's kind of being returned to his more classic appearance via a reborn duplicate of consciousness. Otto's time as Superior Spider-Man gave us the most changed version of the character we've ever seen. Number 2. Loki. Loki has been on a roller coaster of change over the years. While the Marvel Cinematic Universe may have introduced us to a more classic Loki, evil adopted brother of Thor and Norse god of mischief, the reality is in the comics Loki has seen all kinds of crazy changes made to his form and character since he first appeared. After Loki and everyone died during Ragnarok, we saw him return in a female form, taking Sif's body for his own, and we had Lady Loki. Loki would later be returned to his male adult body after Sif reclaimed her own physical form, but then Loki would die again and instead be returned to us as Kid Loki, who was more heroic and far less villainous than his original counterpart. And now we have Loki Prime, who basically is returned to his original form but also holds within him all the altered forms that have come previous. He has the absorbed knowledge of the different versions we've known over the years and can transform into any of them at will, even forms he didn't necessarily choose for himself. Number 1. Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn has seen momentous change over the years to her character. She has become independent of the Joker while starting out as simply a small character who was meant to be his little sidekick and girlfriend. She moved from the Batman animated series to the comics to the big screen. Her outfit has changed multiple times and her attitude has also changed along with it. As she's become more self-aware, she's begun to question more why she does what she does, attempting to understand her motivations and even better, herself, moving slightly closer with every passing year from the category of ultimate supervillain towards the role of anti-hero. Just creeping up there. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who are some of your most favorite supervillains? Who do you think are some of the other villains who have changed the most? Would you like to see a part 2 to this list? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you till next time to stay nerdy, YouTube.